build a life and business legacy on purpose through mindset, branding, marketing, sales, systems, and team so they can make an amazing impact and income and positively affect their communities worldwide. Ensure that you are sharing this show, you're subscribing, and you also are leaving us a review so we can create more amazing content around those areas to help you level up to the next level and also bring amazing guest experts that can share their knowledge and expertise with you so that you can create amazing legacy. All right, Legacy Builders, welcome back to another show. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is the team, the people resource in our companies. And I have the honor to have been connected with an amazing founder and CEO, David Wolf. He will share with us some of his best practices or things that have worked for him in the journey of him scaling his company in the short 5 years that his company is around, impacting people and doing amazing work out there in the world. So, David, thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful and blessed that you're here. And I'm looking forward to a great conversation and learning more from your experience and journey as an entrepreneur today.
Thanks, Elona. It's great to be with you, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise. So let's absolutely dive right into today's topic. So scaling your company is such a short time. I know that when you just start anything new, right? Sometimes, there's so much learnings that you have to do as an entrepreneur and as a founder, and you don't always have the right resources to be able to grow a company that is really creating purpose and profit out there in the world. So what were some of the things that you have learned as you scaled your company with team over the 5 years that you mentioned that you can share with us?
Absolutely. So the interesting thing about my particular business is it's not a new model per se. We are essentially, I should sort of set the stage. We are an audiobook and podcast production company. So audiobooks existed 15, 20 years ago, they started. And audiobooks and podcasts have both been around for a number of years, really. So it's a production model. It's a service. We're paid a fee for our services to third parties that want to participate in these markets. On the podcast side, it's often a function of their marketing efforts. They want to all the reasons we know that we podcast, including today with you. On audiobooks, slightly more commoditized model, but it's a known solution. So we weren't creating. The point of all this is, Lona, we weren't creating anything particularly new. We weren't building a new piece of software. We weren't inventing a new widget that didn't exist. We were really taking two facets of a career that I had. I was originally a music producer, and so involved with audio production for radio, television, film. And I took what was a solo operation and then reformed what I do and transferred my skill set and knowledge about production into something more scalable than me writing pieces of music one at a time for clients and advertising agencies and filmmakers. So I'm shortcutting here, but I wanted to establish that because we weren't creating something absolutely new, I think it made it a little bit easier. So my journey was really rediscovering my production roots, which, I went and did some other things after my music career, and then came back around and started doing a podcast called Small Biz America. And then I realized that, I could also produce audiobooks and started to network with authors and publishers. And gradually I started to get busier and busier. And so it wasn't like I had an idea, let me scale this business. It was more, I needed a VA. Okay. So I went and found there was someone locally who I loved. I knew of her from the network around here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Erica Yoakum. And she joined me as my VA somewhere in, I think, late 2018 into 2019. And after some amount of time, she knocked on my door one day and said, "Hey, can we talk about 2020? This is moving into 2020. So I had no idea what she wanted to talk to me about. And she comes over and we sit and she says, "I want to work for you full time. I love your business. I want to close my VA agency for the most part and begin to work for you full time. And let's build this thing together." So it was quite spontaneous and serendipitous. It wasn't, I plotted to scale my company and went out and hired the right people. And so what's fascinating about my particular process, it was kind of like forming a band, which I was familiar with. Erica comes on, and she eventually becomes the COO. Now she's the CEO. So this is over a 5-year period. So she come rolling back now. So now we need help with the podcast production because it's just too much work for me to edit and record and do all the things that go into podcast production. And so I was introduced to a guy that was local, a composer for film and television. He's done some stuff for Netflix, and it was a perfect role for him because he understands audio editing and he understands how to produce, and he's great with people. So Sean Hedinger comes in and you're the director of podcast production. Then I realized, I can't do so many sessions because it takes a lot of time to record with authors on, using these platforms that record high quality audio remotely. This is a big part of our business. And I have to cast other actors when we're doing fiction. And in comes a guy, I meet a guy on LinkedIn, and suddenly Mark Shipman is the next member of the team. And then finally, Jay Spang, who actually is a guy I'd known for about 20 years because we had worked previously with my wife and he had been in the market. He was actually a guest on Small Biz America, my podcast that I mentioned a few minutes ago. He raises his hand, kind of like Erica, and says, I love this business. I want to learn more about it. Can I just come with you out to PodFest and learn about your business? That year I happened to go to PodFest to be an exhibitor. So I guess, Elona, the thing about my particular process, which I think might be unique, is that it came together quite spontaneously. It wasn't an architecture or a plot or a scheme or a way of systematic building a team. Yeah, there was no business plan. Forget about it. They just all came to me. I pinched myself because not only did they all come to me in this spontaneous sort of systematic way, self-directed way, but the way we work together is absolutely spectacularly collaborative and loving, and you couldn't dream for a better business culture. If I had tried to do this, I don't think it would have worked. So that's my long answer to your short question about how do we build this team, right? And there's more there, but So.
David, I love what you just shared because it seems to me like you're the artist, right? And your intuition attracts, and you've been able to pretty much leverage a lot of your experience to grow the company intuitively, right? Based on the needs of the scaling that you have experienced throughout the different journeys of its growth. But I love that you mentioned that you kind of intuitively knew that, okay, that could be the next person. So you connected with that person and then they kind of came on board and they already, align with you and the way that you operate. So they've been able to be part of your team because traditionally, that is what we hear. And yes, having a great plan and having a strategy behind what we do and why we do it, and all of those different functions of growing, I guess,
Right.
company at the operations level where you kind of structure out the departments. I got somebody in the service delivery and then the operations, marketing, all work. But I think being intuitive with the people that we attract on our team, just like probably your clients, I shared the artist piece as well because I love to write. So I've recently produced a music video with the message of my journey as well. So I think it's such an important thing to embrace our authenticity as founders and as leaders, and then start to align with the right people that might have those skills or strengths that we might be missing, so that it's a beautiful harmony of leadership and collaboration. At least it's kind of what I see on the other side. Who is the person on the team that you are looking for next? Maybe this interview will.
Well, that's a very interesting question. So it's a very interesting question. So at a certain point, I think I realized that structurally, this business is going to exist as it is. In other words, I looked at possibilities for how to scale from here because I've got directors at the audiobook and podcast production level, and I have a CMO and sales and marketing guy. By the way, there was a shift that happened here. At the beginning, I was doing all the sales and all of the taking calls with new clients, talking to new publishers about being a partner. For the most part, I realized, and I know I interrupted my own flow, but I want to get this out there. I realized that I have to build a business that is not solely dependent on me being the face of the brand. There's some of that you can't let go of, or you can't get rid of, I should say, and it's okay. But at this point, Jay is really taking over, taking all the sales calls, and he's really working. He's the client-facing, prospect-facing guy in our model. And now I've removed myself so that I can begin to think about how to grow a larger organization, which I think I hinted at earlier. So when we think about the next person, I think about this slightly differently. I think I think that the business can scale. How shall I say, downward from the directors that are in place, the people that are in. For example, Erica, who was COO operations, now CEO COO combination. She has two people that report to her, and we're fairly flat as an organization, but we have some hierarchical functionality. You can't avoid it. So she has a couple of people that report to her. One is an employee now, the other a freelancer, and so she's starting to build out her ecosystem of I need help with uploading the videos, or I need upload help doing certain functions that are a part of the process for publishing audiobooks, we'll say, whatever it happens to be. Some of it's bookkeeping oriented. So she has split and delegated out. Mark on the audiobook side, uh, he has gone through a series of um, growth challenges where we needed more audio editors and we needed more people producing the authors online during the recording sessions. So we're systematically adding people. So it's multiple people coming in, not so much the pillars of our team of five, but more underneath them to help create redundancy so that we have capacity of depth of capacity. We have people on the bench. If suddenly we have a spike and now we have, we typically have about 80 books in production at a given time on audio. Suddenly we may have a month where we suddenly have 10 more that we didn't know were coming. We need to know we can take that on. So we have capacity on the bench, and Mark is working on that. The podcast side of the business moves at a different rhythm than audiobooks, although the skill sets are somewhat similar. But Sean has a team of 5 editors, and if we need to expand, we'll look for more freelance guys. But the truth is, the guys we have in place on that side of the house still have some capacity. So we're looking at constantly measuring capacity, engaging, and calibrating, and trying to anticipate what's coming next. If we sign in a new publisher, we know we're going to have another 10 to 20 books a month. We have to staff up for that, and we do it typically with freelancers. With one caveat, we have moved some of our freelancers to now into W-2 employees. So it's very dynamic. But I don't think there'll be a management person per se, which I think was at the heart of your question. I may be wrong, but maybe not.
Yeah, well, no, I think also just back to what you're saying, what kind of is coming through to me that I think the audience will also find value is
Mm,
not necessarily, focus so much on the who. Sometimes just identifying the SOPs, right? The operating, procedures and the processes of the everyday,
right,
operations of the business could
right,
really shine a lot of light into the next who that you need, right? Because
right.
if you see that you're repeating a lot of processes and you have maybe you need to focus more on the service delivery, and that's how you know that could be the next person that joins you. So not so much following again that traditional approach to maybe how we have been used to
Yeah.
identifying our hiring needs in our companies and be able to scale. But I love that you shared that you're very intuitive in your processes and your operations, and then that dictates, okay, who might be the next who. And it sounds like, the strengths is also the strength there is leveraging your current team that you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
be able to also giving them the freedom to bring the right people on board. I absolutely think that's really powerful there as well. David, with your services, what specifically do you offer with your podcast production services and your audiobook services so that the audience can.
Thank you. Oh, that's great. Thank you for asking that. So, at our core, we are a production company, but it covers on both sides of the house. There's a process that's somewhat similar, although the specs for these process products and results are different. So, on the podcast side, we onboard a client, we consult with them, we design the show and the flow, and create the intros and outros and all of the assets, the album art that goes on iTunes and all of the rest of the. We set up the RSS feed, and so that's phase one. It's really conceptual, it's designing and setup. Then from there, we go into phase two, which is episodic cadence for episodic production. We like to get 4 shows in the can minimum. And then from there, we're running, usually it's a weekly show. Some of our clients, have different cadences, bi-weekly. We have one that does quarterly, occasionally monthly. To get that momentum, we recommend a client budget for a weekly iteration, and we're there for them. We have a producer that shows up at the recording session to press record, make sure everything sounds and looks great. Then we have a team of post production that does the editing and post production to get the show ready for approval. We send it to the client. They give us our approval, and then we upload it to all the major podcast networks. On the audiobook side of the house, we partner with, we have several publishers or publishing services companies that send us business in a fluid sort of way, an ongoing way. One month they may have 5, the next month they may have 25, but we take their books in. We get a handoff from those companies to our production team. We do an onboarding call. There's 2 ways we do audiobooks. One is we record authors reading their own remotely using high quality remote recording studio software. It's not a big lift for the author. The real focus there is on being with them during the recording sessions remotely. It feels like a Zoom call, but we use different software. And our producers there to coach them to get the best, most connective and authentic performance out of them. Typically, these are nonfiction works. They're business books. They're books and memoirs sometimes, books where they're delivering material that's really about them and the voice of their brand. So since that's their voice of the brand, we recommend that and we're just there to get the best performance out of them that we can, and then seamlessly edit it into something that really reflects a wonderful performance. They're, like any production process, it's retakes and outtakes, and we shape all of that with them in a series of 90-minute recording sessions. And then from there, it's post-production. It's editing, mastering, upload it to their ACX or Findaway Voices account, so it goes out to all of the distribution channels that audiobooks exist on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and now for our podcaster, a third of our revenue actually comes from advertising revenue from podcasts. So many of our podcasts generate ad revenue, and so we facilitate that, whether it's a host read-in commercial that the host will connect with the audience and read, or it's a canned commercial that we produce for a client, or what's called programmatic ads, which are the ads they fly in from a network as a pre-emit or a post-roll, separate from the show. They're not baked in. Nobody knows about them until someone goes to listen, and then they're inserted dynamically. So podcasters on our platform can generate income in a couple different ways, as I mentioned. And so we help facilitate that monetization of their podcast if that's something they want to do. It's not always right, but in many cases they want to. So I think that covers the core of our Audavita business.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, podcasting is also one of the most powerful ways that we can grow our brand and really build trust and nurture relationships with our audiences. And the audiobook version as well, it's just one way to reach the audience that's more auditory. I mean, I that's how I started my journey in personal development, just by listening to a lot of audiobooks due to my busy lifestyle and also podcasting. So both of those are really important. And I love that you also do done for you services, sounds like, for a lot of the multi-authors that we have here, and also for a lot of the entrepreneurs that are looking to grow and monetize their podcasts, because podcasting and our podcast, as they grow, they can be their own products pretty much for a lot of people, but not everybody understands how to leverage it and utilize and produce a high quality show, so that they can also leverage the piece of the monetization eventually down the line as well. So I think that's definitely really amazing in the way that you have also structured the services and the processes and how you help your clients. David, I also know you're a very purpose-driven entrepreneur and founder, and always have your heart on causes and projects. Is what we call soul projects, or projects that are near and dear to our heart, because as an entrepreneur we all are always working on multiple things. It's not usually one thing that we have our focus on, because especially if you want to be someone that creates impact in the world, every phase and stage of growth, we're always looking to leverage and grow certain things within our companies and our businesses. I know you're involved with something lately as well, so can you tell us a little bit more around that specific project?
Yeah, and thank you for asking about that. The specific passion project, as we like to call it. But I want to backtrack just one step and say, for the Audavita team, we call ourselves the Fab Five, the management team of this business that started all of this. The one unintended, very positive outcome of all of this, and the one I didn't see coming, was you used the word impact. I am impacting people's lives on our team, and I'm impacting the freelancers that report to those people as well. To me, at the beginning, I was just growing something bigger. Let's get bigger and grow revenue and drive it and help serve these people that want to get their voices out to the world. Connect your voice to the world is our line there. You can see. But the thing I didn't know is that I would be seriously impacting people that work with us and for us, and ultimately our clients as well. So that's not something I saw coming. I think it's because I'm really built as a creative artist. As I mentioned, I was a musician and composer, and that's a very selfish kind of act. You're really creating art, and then you sell it as a commercial artist, in my instance. And it's very solipsistic in that sense. You know, you're not really thinking about the impact. You're thinking about the impact of your music on people emotionally, because that helps it sell and it helps it move the needle. But you're not thinking about, oh, this one wouldn't have had a baby if it wasn't that I gave him a job, or these guys can take a trip and or buy a new house because, or this one can pay their medical bills because they worked for me. And thank you, David, for creating this model where so that impact was important. All right, so pulling back into your question, I decided, and I think it's something that's been latent in my ambition, to create a larger model than Audavita can contain in and of itself. The studio is a studio operation. So I formed an entity for original podcast and possibly television series called 1125 Studios. It's we're still pre-revenue as we're talking today, but it's a collaboration with a documentary filmmaker who's become a very good friend and collaborator in Los Angeles. And so we are putting together original series podcasts. Some of them are being considered for television and true crime, narrative podcasts. So it's true crime, it's music, the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller album. I'm looking at my list. Another pop culture called Notorious Women that's already out. You can find that. The Michael Jackson series, by the way, is also out. It's called Stories in the Room, Michael Jackson Thriller, 40th anniversary of the album. And then another one called EPM, Evolutions Per Minute, which is a music series as well. So now I'm finding myself there's a little corner of our portfolio that's about original work, different than the podcaster that does it for marketing purposes, which is what we built Audavita on. Now, backing up and zooming out a little more, I've created a superstructure called Media Capital Ventures and conveyed 1125, which is the company I just talked about, and Audavita into those. And now we're creating a structure so that we can bring and raise more money and begin to grow by acquisition. So we'll continue to grow Audavita. We're going to continue to pursue our objectives with 1125. But now we're beginning to identify companies in marketing, digital marketing, lead generation, in AI voice generation, or related, even media research, so that we can participate in the ad spend, but diversifying away from production only. So it's almost like a private equity. A proxy would be private equity, but we're a holding company rather than managing money for investors. So we're just starting now to raise capital and are beginning to identify companies that we think would be synergistically compatible and or complementary to Audavita and 1125. So that's the short version, but very exciting.
I mean, I love it. The dream always goes on, right? As you always try to expand. I love the word that you use, diversification, right? Because I think that's really important in the income generation process of our companies as well, to be able to diversify our products and services that we actually offer to either the same market or new markets, and not to be afraid to venture out as you build and streamline a lot of those operations. Then you can.
And Elona, I want to point to something that inside of what you're saying. Forgive me for interrupting, but it's because I know you may have a follow up. With all of this, part of the reason I want to build the superstructure is because I understood, and I was told by my team, the 5 of us, that clients were asking for marketing, and we tried to do that, but within the Audavita structure, it wasn't in our lane. We realized that we're optimized to do these things, production, and that's what we need to do. So the fact that we put a red line around the lanes of what Audavita can do functionally and what it's capable of without getting into distractions, just because a client says they need something doesn't mean we need to change everything we do. So it told me that there's a containment around Audavita. We can't force feed other types of services into it, diversification. We just need to do more of what we already do to scale Audavita. But in order to scale into offering our same clients some of these other things like marketing or podcast guesting, we may need to acquire companies that do those things or partner with them in interesting, creative ways outside of the Audavita infrastructure. So I just wanted to put a box around that. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. I thought that was important enough to mention.
Yeah, and very smart to do, right? Because again, it's so much easier to be able to strategically collaborate with other companies that are doing it, so that your brand stays consistent as well. So
yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, David, thank you so much for everything that you just shared so far. We actually reached the end of the show today. And what I have for you before we drive people to where is it that they can further continue this conversation with you today is I have a fill in the blank exercise. So I would like for you to fill in the blank, whatever comes up for you based on your experience. When I say I overcome challenges by, what would you answer?
Trying to create, well, first of all, remaining calm and trying to look at the issue as objectively and calmly as possible.
I love it.
I practice meditation, so that helps.
Oh, meditation is powerful, such a powerful tool, especially as we stay more intentional in growing our companies and understanding what is that next right decision to make. That helps us align purpose with profit as well.
There's one more fill in the blank on that one, and that is I don't try to solve it myself. I ask my team they're my crystal ball, and I get a lot of great ideas that I wouldn't have thought of myself. All right, back to you.
Powerful. The best advice in leadership I've received is
you don't have all the answers, and it sort of relates to what I just said. Look to your team to delegate or ask them for help. Don't be. It's not dictatorial. It's not I have to have all the answers. And by the way, I did come in, and I'm in this transition now of backing off from always having to be the leader. Being the leader is different. Performing as a leader is different than just being as a leader, and I'm learning that distinction now.
That was a good one.
I know, right? Force feeding, performing, acting like a leader is a very different thing than actually leading. So yeah.
Then being present, yes, absolutely. And my last question for you, David, is what has your life school taught you?
My life's what? I missed the noun. My life's.
What has your life school taught you?
My life's goal, did you say?
School of life. Your school of life.
School. My life's school. Sorry,
yes.
I was having trouble hearing. My school. Wow. I think that a lot of what informs me about how I operate this so-called intuitive and organic stems from the creativity at my core. I was a musician. A drummer is there to glue everybody together. Is there to solve puzzles around abstract things like notes and instruments and how to solve problems. So I'm fascinated with building things, whether it's an orchestration or a song or a moment in music to make it work. So I think that the musicality has really been highly instructive, and I was born with that somehow. And some of it's visual too, but that artisticness, which you pointed to as a writer, that's really informs how I think about the world and how I continue to learn.
Yeah. Staying true to yourself, and I call that purpose because there's a reason why that showed up in your life the way that he is.
Thank you.
It's always connected to our gifts, isn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah. David, where is it that people can further check out all the amazing work that you're doing?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So the website is just like our name. It's spelled like this, like on the car, Audi, and then Vita, the sound of life. It's Latin derivative. Audivita.com is our production house website. And if you're interested in what I'm building at Media Capital Ventures, that's mediacapitalventures.com. Very easy. Just those 3 words stacked together. And there's a pitch video, and you can get a little idea about what that bigger vision is as well.
All right, beautiful. David, thank you so much for everything that you just did. And I definitely encourage you to check out David's website and to connect with him further, because one of our values here is connection for sure. Good people, when they come together, there's no end to collaboration and the amazing impact that they get to create. So absolutely further connect. And I want to thank you for always watching and supporting the show so we can bring more amazing heart-driven entrepreneurs just like David today by sharing and subscribing. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time with another show. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.